Hello, this is Laura Live, and today we're talking about stimming. I know there's a lot of controversy about stimming, and not the greatest reception again. We'll try this. Should you let your child stim or not? People feel very strongly about this on either way. The Sunrise people I've heard say that they let their kids stim as much as they want. I've heard people say to stop. Stimming can be abusive. And there's something very evil about someone who wants to stop people from stimming. And let's talk first, what is stimming? Stimming it's a short way of saying self-stimulating activities or actions. And it's people who have autism will use repetitive motion. They'll rock back and forth, flap their hands, hum loudly, pace back and forth, maybe take things by their eyes and do things in a repetitive way. Sometimes they'll take string and they'll pluck string repetitively. That's what stimming is. Anything that you do in a repetitive motion. Now, why are they doing this? Well, I always try to have as much empathy as possible when I'm dealing with anything. How can I feel, or can I kind of try to feel what it feels like to want to stim? Well, I've had someone once tell me this. When you have that urge to sneeze, and you're trying to make yourself stop because let's say in a crowded room or an elevator, you don't want to sneeze, and you're like, don't sneeze, and you're kind of breathing heavy, but you just need to sneeze. That urge to sneeze is the same kind of urge that people feel to stim. And I've had other people say that it is the same feeling that addicts have. So if you need to smoke a cigarette, you want to smoke, really, really badly need to smoke a cigarette. It's that kind of urge, that kind of deep-seated need that you feel you have to do it. Now, my whole point of my whole existence in Gemini and in the work I do is to do as much good and do as little harm as possible while I'm doing it. If we allow our students to stim as much as they want to fulfill all their urges, the more they do it, the stronger the urge gets. Just like the more you smoke, the more you will smoke. The more you do anything that's a habit or that comes from this kind of urge, the more you will want to do it because your brains just start kicking it up a notch. So it is the same thing as an addictive craving. We need to back it down because, as Temple Grandin says, she had those cravings, those inclinations, those desires when she was little, and she was allowed to stim 1 hour a day. Now, there are two different kinds of stimming, and I want to make sure we're talking about the right thing. When a person is in a really taxing situation where they do not feel safe. So with people with autism, it could just be in a public place, maybe at a mall, in the grocery store. This is a child where there's lots of sounds, lots of sights. They can't control the world. They can't anticipate anything. They're freaking out. It's scary. They could use stimming to calm down, to self-calm. I'm not talking here about self-calming stimming. That would be abusive to make people stop doing that. And I think that's where we get in trouble, where people are, again, we're not talking about the same thing. Self-calming stimming is a defense mechanism used for the scary world around us, and it helps people just to cope. That stimming should be allowed. In fact, you should try to avoid those situations where the people have to feel like they have to do that as much as possible. As you're easing the child into these kinds of situations, getting them desensitized, getting them more comfortable so that they can go there without having to feel like they have to stim, you're going to have to push the envelope a little bit to their comfort zone. And you'll be able to look at them and see, oh, he's stimming a lot. This is too much. Let's get to a quieter place. Oh, he stopped stimming. Okay, he's okay. And you can use it as sort of a gauge on how freaked out he is and try to get him as little freaked out as possible. But you're going to be pushing that a little bit to push his comfort zone a little bit more each time. So you're going to see stimming then. That's okay. You just back it off until it goes away. It's very different than stimming for an urge, to satisfy an urge. And there's no stress going on. They're home alone. They're in their room by themselves. There's no stressful activity at all around them. They're perfectly happy. In fact, they're so happy they're the Mad Hatter. They're just stimming away like you wouldn't believe. that kind of stimming needs to be diminished as much as possible, because as Temple Grandin said, if she had been allowed to stim as much as she wanted to, she would never be a doctor. She'd never gotten anywhere in life because she'd still be sitting in a room stimming. Her mother allowed her 1 hour a day to decompress and to stim. And that's a good rule of thumb. But what we want to see is that the person's urges start to diminish and that they replace that stimming with other activities. So if you have a super stimmer and you allow them to decompress for an hour and they're in there stimming, I would see if you could start even replacing that down to 45 minutes, then a half an hour, but doing something else to take their mind off of their stress that they had in school, maybe playing a game with them. Somehow they're engaged in our world, because what stimming does, again, we have published research that shows that people with autism have hyper-connected default networks, which means that the part of the brain that's used for daydreaming or dreaming is on when they're awake. And so stimming helps them. And I've had adults with autism tell me this. They use the stimming, the repetitive behavior, to get further into their own than I would like to be. It's nice in there. It's fun. It's relaxing. It's whatever. And they use the stimming to get deeper and deeper into their own world. We want them in our world, though. They can't function. You cannot live your life if you are in a daydream constantly. You can't pay attention to what's around. You can't live. You have to be in a facility. You can never be independent. We need them to be active in our world. And so if they're using that stimming to get into their own world, we need to replace it with something that's still fun, that's still relaxing, but in our world. And so that's what we think, what can I do to get his mind up to the point where the student, the child, even the adult starts to forget the urge, and they don't have that urge anymore. And so I think, again, there are many things with autism we get mad at each other because we're talking about two separate things. Stimming for self-defense is not stimming to get into your own world with your default network. One, you should never discourage, because it would be abusive to the person to stop doing that. They're really freaking out, and this is the only thing that's helping them calm down. One, would be abusive to let them continue. We all want our children to be independent. And so you can give them a little bit, start backing out. Okay, questions. I totally agree that they do so for a reason. It's be it bad or good, and they act appropriately. I truly believe that the stim for a reason, be good or bad, which allows us parents to act accordingly to whether we need to stop it or let them continue. Right. We need to look, why are you doing this? And should we redirect? If you have a student who's stimming constantly during therapy, during school, you need to redirect. If you let them go, they're off to the races. You need to stop and redirect constantly. And I know when they're little, you're redirecting all day long, especially the verbal stimming. No funny talk. It's all day long. Just for parents who are in the thick of this right now, it gets easier and gets better. As you are on top of it, you're trying to train that urge to be less and less and less. My grandson is 11 months old and has Leber's congenital amaurosis. I've never heard that before. He's blind. He has postured with his hands and rocked since he could sit up on his own. He has met and exceeded developmental milestones. Should we try and stop the posturing? You know what? I don't know anything about this condition. I've never even heard of it. If it's like Gemini, though, I would suggest that you're going to want him to replace it with more activities. I would replace it, this is a lot of work, with holding his hands, with playing with him, with talking to him. He would be, blind people, it's hard with Gemini, but the thing is there's so much language that you need to hear all the time if you're blind. I think it'd be good to have Gemini in the room, because he's going to hear that articulation, and he's going to hear slowed down scenarios, and that may help with language. But as far as the stopping the stimming, just replace it with something else until hopefully he won't grow up with that urge. It's less constant having to replace it with something else. My 10-year-old son knows he's not stim, but he's not aware. But he's not aware of it most of the time. Marissa, exactly. The urge is so strong and they're in their daydream that they don't even know they're doing it. And that's why I have to remind them, you're stimming, you're stimming. With my son, it was no funny talk, no funny fingers, no funny talk. Funny fingers, funny talk. Just be reminding him. You're doing it again. Oh, well, that's right. And he'll stop doing it. Oh, that's right. You be constantly reminded. And just say, well, we used the gym and we taught him no funny talk, and he knows he's not supposed to do it, but he's doing it all day. He knew it yesterday he wasn't supposed to do it. He learned it. So, but he's still doing it today. And that's why I said, oh, Mom. Oh, if it were that so easy. With stimming, it will take years. She was not happy when I told her. I said, no, Gemini taught him the prompt, no funny talk. Now it's your job to follow up with saying it for the next 5 years, because he's just going to do it without even thinking. And it'll be less and less. She says, now he's doing it just to get me to say no funny talk. I said, well, then he's not stimming. He's playing with you. That's a game. He's not using it to get in his own network. He's totally getting his own world. He's totally aware of what he's doing, and he's playing a little game. That's a step in the right direction. It's driving you crazy. I know. I'm sorry. It's driving you crazy. And it will continue to drive you crazy probably for 2 or 3 years, but it will not be forever. I had the same thing with mine. I had to be on top of it, and now he does. Still, though, he's 20 years old. Max talks to himself all the time. I talk to myself. My 4-year-old will always say, Mommy, stop talking to yourself. Mommy, stop talking to yourself. I do it. If there's nobody in the room with Max, he will talk to himself. About 5 years ago, I heard him talking full conversation with somebody when he was in the kitchen. And I thought literally he was talking to somebody there. I said, Max, who are you talking to? And he said, nobody. And I walked in and I said, oh my gosh, you are having a full-on conversation with nobody but yourself. And he's indistinguishable from his peers when he's around other people. He just still talks. He still does a funny talk, but it's not funny. Now he's actually covering conversations. So I just made up the guy that he's talking to called Kevin. I have a joke. And every time I hear him in that, I want him to know he's doing it. He does know he's doing it because he never does it with other people. He only does it when he's by himself. And I'll say, what are you and Kevin talking about, Max? And he said, what Kevin and I talk about is private. So, yeah, it's still going to continue. I do it. He does it. He does it with just more gusto, but only alone. He never does it in front of other people, ever, because he's aware now. It's that simple. So there we go. We have got so many questions. Oh my goodness. Woo! My goodness. How can we control the diet if he is never going to eat chicken and meat and he's a picky eater? How can I make him eat chicken which is not blend in and then I have to give him milk? Oh, you take, what I did with the chicken is I had rice and I cut it up in the chicken in tiny little rice pieces. So it looked like chicken and rice. And he would eat the rice. I put oil in rice and seasoning. And so he just thought he was eating rice. And the piece of chicken just got bigger and bigger and bigger. You can give him, and don't worry about it. He'll eventually eat it. What as far as eating beef, I had him cook a piece of beef. You can do this with chicken or with any, and he cooked it himself. He stood in the sun, he cooked it back and forth. He cooked it. So once he cooked it, he's about 4 years old, he wanted to eat it because he cooked it. And then after that, he ate it all the time. When my 3-year-old son gets excited and was watching his favorite show or TV, he stims by running from room to room and spins over and over. Should I stop this? That's not necessarily stimming, unless stimming is literally locked in your old world, getting in here. That's just showing you excited. What you want to do is get excited with him and give him and jump up now, hold hands, yay, and then make sure you're not watching some video over and over again. He should only watch one show in 6 months. Not watch it over and over again. That's going to make him stim. Thank you so much. We moved to another state and my son goes to a new school where they don't stop him. It took us 3 years to get him to stop. Yikes. Show him this. Show him Temple Grandin. He needs to stop. The problem is people who don't stop kids who stim don't believe that they can ever become independent. They think school is for babysitting. Nice little boy, we're going to put you in an institution when you grow up. There's no reason to. You're happy. Just let him be happy. You know, well, my 4-year-old's happy eating Twinkies too. I'm not going to give him Twinkies. My child's going to be independent. My child cannot be independent if he's doing this all day, if he's with his finger sting. And it's your job while he's here to make sure he's not doing that. Sorry, this really makes me mad because these people don't believe in our kids. They just don't. They don't know what what they are capable of doing. If they did, they wouldn't let them do that. I had an almost 2-year-old. He runs back and forth quite a bit, but he's smiling and laughing the whole time. It's like he's having fun. Oh, she's concerned his brother was put on the spectrum. Okay. That's not a concern. That's what my 2-year-olds do that too. That's as long as he's engaged outside. If he's inside his own world, running around crazy inside of his own world, that's a problem. If he's looking at you and laughing, that's okay. Try to always direct attention on you. My son, who was 11 and nonverbal, takes both his fists and rubs his chin hard. Would I consider that stimming? Yes, that is stimming. You should redirect that as much as you can. I'm frustrated. I'm sorry, Melanie. That's really horrible. I would show them this video and I would do the temperament thing. Our little guy clenches his teeth and holds his breath when he stims. We tell him to count to hear, so he stops. Is this bad thing that we interrupt him? No, interrupt him. Stop him. Get him mind on something else. He's doing that because he's of his urges. My son screams all day and laughs uncontrollably, and it's almost impossible to bring him back to the real world. I used to have night terrors as a child, and my mom would have to slap me in the face. Okay. My son did screaming thing did the laughing uncontrollably thing too. It's been my experience. Again, I'm not a doctor. Just anecdotally, kids who do that have a gluten and casein issue. The more gluten and casein they eat, the more laugh uncontrollably they go. Literally, they're high. It's like they are high on something in the milk and the wheat, and they get addicted to it, and they want it more and more and more. It makes them laugh like an addict. So get them off milk and wheat for 6 months, and I bet the laughing will go away. Hi, Laura. I had mentioned that Mason wants us to repeat everything he sings. There's our mouths. I wonder if that is a stim. Should I repeat if he wants to do something else to distract him? Yeah, I wrote you a letter, content, and I think Travis posted it on Jeanette. First off, change so he's not seeing the close-ups anymore on the sessions. When you create a session, put just a mid-shot and a generalization so he doesn't see the close-up, because I think he's stimming off the mouth close-up now. He totally talks. He's amazing. So now, because you remember we thought that he was a praxic, and using Gemini, he's talking up a storm. He's talking too much. So, yeah, get rid of the mouths and redirect him. I don't think he's stimming. I think he's really, really interested in mouths, but he's fixated on it now. It's like an OCD thing. It's not a stimmy thing. It's like it's OCD. So you want to redirect it. Sorry for the ignorance, but why is it wrong to let my son stim? I feel it is calming for him. Hi, Davey. If you go back to the beginning of this, you'll see why. Because if he stims, he'll never be independent. If that's all he does in his whole life is walk around stimming, he'll never have a job. He'll never have a life. He'll be in an institution. That's why. We don't want that. He has learned how to work the DVR remote and remind shows over and over again. Is it stimming? Yes, that's stimming. Cannot do that. Get rid of the DVR. My son stims non-stop. The school said it will never go away. That's not true. That's not true. We can stop stimming. That is not true. Your child can improve. Your child can be independent. Your child can live a life on their own. Don't believe the school. They just have to redirect it. If they don't know what they're doing, they need to get education. They need to get a BCBA in there to train them how. But you need to redirect it. I've been hiding the remotes. When he finds them, he becomes obsessed with the remote. He is on a gluten-free diet. He will only eat yogurt. How do I get him to try different foods? Okay, the casein is worse than the gluten. You got to get the rogue yogurt is the problem. Go get coconut yogurt. There's coconut yogurt. Coconut milk yogurt is delicious. No casein. And start putting little bits of fruit in the coconut yogurt, and give him vitamins, autism vitamins, autism minerals in the coconut yogurt, and don't worry about it. He'll be getting enough nutrition for a while just to get him off the casein. All right, everybody. I'm going to sign off. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the comments, and we will get back to you. Remember, post, share, and subscribe.